Hey, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, where we'll be discussing the rise of the customer and energizing professional services organizations with Dynamics 365. My name is Doug Welsby, and I'm a channel manager here at Wickersoft, and I'm also joined by my colleague Scott Daly, a senior account executive here at Wickersoft, located in Seattle. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar chat feature to submit questions. I will address these questions during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I will be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. I'll now turn the presentation over to Scott, who'll be handling the webinar. Go ahead, Scott.
All right, thank you, Doug. As Doug said, our webinar today is on the Modern Professional Services Organization. We're going to take about 30 to 40 minutes. We're going to talk a little bit, very briefly about Wickersoft. We're going to talk about the business case for the Project Service Office, which may be a semi-new concept for some of you. We're going to talk about what it takes to get it delivered. We're going to do a tool demo, which I hope everybody is very interested in. It's going to take the bulk of this presentation on how Dynamics 365 can deliver against the promises of the Project Service Office. Then we'll return to a summary and wrap it all up. So this will be, there'll be a handful of slides at the very outset, but then we'll get right into the demo. And everybody, if anybody has any questions, as Doug said, please feel free to enter them in the chat window and we'll get back to you. So Wickersoft is a joint venture formed with Microsoft in 2002. We are a global company with offices across the US and across the world. We do provide both advisory solutions and operations services. And in that sense, an advisory service is temporary, usually leading to a transformation in how a company does business. The solution portion is usually the tools that we leverage to make the transformation happen. And then, of course, operations is enduring and actually leveraging the solutions to deliver on the promise that we made initially. We are a gold certified partner multiple times over, and we are a certified cloud solution provider as well. The business case for the customer-focused Project Service Office. This may, again, seem like a concept that is a little new, but I think if we think about it in terms of an evolutionary progression, it becomes obvious what we're really talking about. From the age of manufacturing through the age of distribution, age of information, right, age of the customer. The real change that's occurred in, say, the last 15 years around project management and delivering projects and the outcomes is that customers have grown to expect a far more retail-like presentation of information technology. And that just simply means they are used to looking at their phone and getting exactly what they want. In our world, it means that not only is the product ultimately an important thing, but the journey along the way, the communication with the client is incredibly important, and how we make sure that the client knows that they're getting what they want and that it's going to cost what they expected and that it's going to be on the schedule that they asked for. And if it's going to change, that they know how those changes are going to happen and that it's delivered to them through an environment that doesn't force them to work to find out what's going on. Like their phones, that it's an environment that shows them what they want and they can then free themselves to think about more important things. Service market trends and challenges. We are slowly moving towards an economy of project-based, people-centric services business. And what this means is interesting. Project-based means that employment and involvement with clients is more about outcomes and is more temporary than it has been in the past. It's about making sure that people get what they want and then, of course, ultimately are satisfied in return for another project. But it means that what we think of as long-term employment may be shifting depending on the size of the project itself. Of course, we are all dealing with globalization, centralization, modernization, and streamlining of operations as well. Again, these are all products of technology that have changed over the course of the last 20 to 30 years. We're also seeing a rise in service projects, so that are fixed fee in time. This is a very uncomfortable environment for many of us that are used to working on time and materials contracts. But we are in fact seeing people say, look, you need to know enough in advance to provide us with an estimate and a structure that makes sure that we deliver, that you deliver what you're going to say for a fixed fee. Going hand in glove with that is the demand for greater predictability, accountability, and value for services spend. Finally, the diversity quadrant encompasses not only the workforce, but the point solutions that have arisen as well. And that includes spreadsheets and email, which are not going away. Everybody wants to, or thinks they want to, eliminate spreadsheets and email. But in fact, their use has simply grown. And of course, people, as they enter the workforce and deliver services from more and more locations, the great commonality is our spreadsheets and email. Each system, of course, has different expectations, but it's that universal commonality of spreadsheets and email that ensure that we're never going to see them quite go away, or at least not in the foreseeable future. So you can see all the market trends towards greater predictability and structure are running directly counter to the diversity that we see growing in terms of how services can be delivered. And not only that, but methodologies like Agile and other less structured, or I shouldn't say less structured, but other mechanisms for delivering projects are on the rise as well. So the conflict between those two things, this demand for greater predictability and transparency with greater diversity of methodology, workforce, and tools needs to be reconciled. Which leads us to the value of the Microsoft Office 365 PPM, project and portfolio management piece. And I should say that this says Office 365, but this demo is going to be largely around Dynamics 365. As you can see, what we have in terms of cloud-based benefits, in terms of synergies, the gaining visibility to project and performance through better reporting comes in at one of the highest returns. The Dynamics 365 platform, in conjunction with the Office platform, really bring that story together. So the Dynamics platform becoming a central repository for this data, the Office 365 platform providing the human interface, it were, the email and the Excel and the Word documents that people expect to collaborate on. Resource management improvements lead to some startling return very early on, reduction in actual labor costs, reduction in time to allocate, average increase in resource utilization. A lot of our internal clients don't think about resource utilization as being a profit center. Nonetheless, they are very interested in maximizing the return on the investment they make in the people that they hire. Visibility to project performance increases after implementing Office PPM, and of course we can quantify the benefits as well if needed. So delivering the project services office with the Microsoft Cloud, we are going to talk about this at a high level first. So our mission, as far as Microsoft is concerned, is to empower every person, organization, on the planet to achieve more. That's wonderful, and of course everybody wants that. We want an intelligent cloud, both in the centralized scenario and at the edge. More to the point of this presentation, we are very interested in enabling digital transformation, and really what that means is taking the tools that are being produced and creating business outcomes with them. At a high level, this means empowering employees, engaging customers, optimizing operations, and transforming products. And we do it through a combination of the Microsoft partner ecosystem, companies like Wickersoft, and the Microsoft tools that you're all familiar with, including the workplace, business applications, data and AI, gaming for that matter as well. So Microsoft has a growth mindset, customer obsessed, diverse, and inclusive. One Microsoft, make a difference. We as a Microsoft partner and a Microsoft joint venture, of course, include ourselves in that. So what is Microsoft Dynamics 365? There's still a lot of question in the marketplace when people hear Dynamics. Do they think about Dynamics AX, which is a financials tool? Do they think about CRM? Dynamics 365 is a lot more than that. Dynamics 365 is in reality a platform for solving business problems. It includes Office and Project. It includes Cortana, Power Apps, Microsoft Flow, Microsoft Teams, but it also includes or specific business solutions like marketing, sales, customer service, field service, and project service. Dynamics 365 for project and work management. We're going to follow this flow through the demo as well. It's about demand management, whether it's internal or external demand. It's about doing project planning. It's about resource management, and team collaboration, time and expenses, and customer billing. Now, each one of these things can be both internal or external. So projects can, again, be driven from internal demand or from external demand. And the beauty of the Dynamics 365 platform is that it's flexible enough to accommodate those things, leveraging the same structures. So there's not a ground-up build of these things. If you need to do, for example, something called chargebacks inside your organization, you would end up leveraging the exact same pre-built tools that are in the platform as you would if you needed to do customer billing, for example. So project is, of course, part of this, and that's the Office 365 component, Exchange, Office 365 itself in terms of Word, Excel, and whatever else. And the end is all around the customer, right? The customer, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer, is the ultimate target and objective for everything we do. Just kind of a word real quickly about the project service versus project online. Versus is probably not the best way to describe it. These are two things that go better together. Dynamics 365 and the Common Data Service platform provide a lot of functionality around, of course, pipeline management, contracts, expense reporting, rate tables, resource scheduling, customer billing. Project Online, doing a lot of lift around prioritization, team scheduling, project management, task assignment, et cetera, et cetera. The two things generally should be seen as depending on what your organization's orientation is, either a lot of both, a lot of one, or a lot of the other. It really depends on your organization's objectives. So this is the structure we're going to follow for the project service. These are the general kinds of people that you see involved: a practice director, maybe an account manager, project manager, resource manager, team member, end customers. End customer, again, can mean either internal or external. Demand management can mean either internal demand or external demand. Project planning can take multiple forms depending on what the initial needs are. Is it top down? Is it bottoms up? Is it contract based? Is it delivery based? Resource management typically tends to revolve around things like capacity planning. Are people working too much? Are people working enough? How do we make sure that we have enough of the right role to get work done? Team collaboration through the Office platform, Teams, Groups, SharePoint, anything that you have already in place or you may be considering can be leveraged. Time and expenses. We'll touch on those briefly. Those are normal kinds of functions that we expect to see in organizations, whether you need to report progress on tasks or whether you need to do a proper timesheet, whether you need to do actual expenses or whether you need to show expenses for an internal project. And then, of course, if you need to bill the customer, that, again, can be external in an invoice or that can be an internal chargeback. So I'm going to go to the demo real quickly. I hope all that was clear. And so this is Dynamics 365. This is a configured environment, so there are elements of this that are not out of the box, but we would expect to see something similar depending on what your organization's actual requirements were. You can see navigation across the top. This is completely configurable. This is showing project that we're in the professional services automation demo, PSA, and I'm at my dashboards. Down here, we can see that we have multiple other choices if we wanted to go through and talk about some of those other services. Over here on this side as well, we'll leverage this navigation. This is internal to this particular piece. Each one of these screens, and you'll see this repeated in Dynamics, shares a common look and feel across the top. You're able to select multiple views depending on not only who you are, but what you want to do at any particular moment. And one last thing that I should say for certain is that when we look at these demos, everything is here. So I'm in as an administrator, and it's easy for me to click on whatever element I want to. When you actually deploy and work with Dynamics, you would be in a position where you would want to say about each role, what do you need to see? You don't need to see all these other things, so we're not going to show them to you. We're going to focus on the information that you need to put in or need to get out in order to make yourself successful. So in this case, we're looking at a dashboard, and this is typical of the kinds of dashboards that you can see delivered inside Dynamics. They're all completely configurable depending on what you need. I'm looking at total revenue, gross margin, cost variance. Again, if you're doing internal billing, you might not need to see these things, but you might see something else that looked very similar in terms of what numbers and what data you needed. So demand management starts, in this case, with opportunities. I'm going to use this as the demo. It could also start with requests. But one of the beautiful things about working on the Dynamics platform is that this is completely integrated. So I have a list of my open opportunities. I could have different views, all opportunities, closed opportunities, whatever you need to be. Of course, that's all completely configurable. In this case, I'm going to take a look at this particular opportunity. And what I can see right off the bat, opening this up, is that I have all kinds of information at my fingertips around what this opportunity is, including the account manager, budget, profitability, current situation, et cetera, kind of things that you expect to see with a sales opportunity. Maybe interestingly as well, I have a timeline in the center. If I choose to, I can leverage this timeline to track everything that goes on, including emails, tasks, et cetera, depending on what I needed. So I'll take a look. I'm able to add appointments directly, send emails directly, phone calls even, tasks, approval, booking alert. This will all be tracked centrally, and you'll see this exact same function leveraged in the project as well, depending on how you want to approach this. So the integration with Office is seamless. I'm also able to see related items to this particular, well, let me back up a second and talk about the workflow for a second. This workflow that you see depicted across the top is configurable based on what you're doing. So in this case, this is an opportunity workflow. You will see this change when we get to the project workflow. Underneath each one of these nodes is a list of things that have to be done in order to move it forward. These can be required or they can be simply suggested, but either way, you can see up under each node, sorry, let me back up. You can see under each node that I have different things depending on what I'm looking at, or depending on what stage I want to get through. Again, completely configurable, and you'll see in the project a completely different workflow. So related to this project, we have products, potentially connections, quotes, playbooks, agreements. I got off on, where am I here? Let me see this particular piece. I'm going to back up a second real quick because I've lost my thread. Here we are. Playbook, sales director, projects. You can see under each opportunity, and again, keeping in mind that this could be a request as well, where you have multiple projects, I'm able to look at a project and I'm able to add new projects to this opportunity. I can go through and, again, completely configurable. I can add whatever I need to in order to create a new project very easily. Okay, I'm going to save those changes, and I can list my additional projects for this opportunity down here. So at that stage, let's suppose instead that we wanted to come in and look at this from my active projects. Again, same functionality. I'm able to have whatever view I want, and I'm able to have whatever list of views I want. I'm able to completely configure these columns across the top to represent what I need. Of course, I'm able to add traffic lights, and I'm able to see all of my active projects across all opportunities or across all requests if that's what I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and filter on C again, and I'm going to drill into this project at this point. And what I see now, first of all, is that the workflow has changed across the top, and that's because this is a project workflow. It has the same basic functionality. I'm able to kind of list what I need to do to get through each stage. So for example, if you have a stage gate process, you'd be able to structure that as part of the workflow. But each project type and each entity in Dynamics overall can have its own workflow. So the thing to notice is, more than anything, is that the workflow is highly flexible, and it can be what you need it to be depending on what you're actually working on. You can also see that we have a lot of information about the project here that's very different from what the opportunity is. It doesn't mean that we can't link it back to the opportunity. The opportunity is right here, simple click away. So if I, as the project manager, have access to the opportunity or the request and I need to go back to it, I can. But more to the point, when we configure this product, you may say, look, we want these pieces of information available to the project manager from the opportunity. Because we're all working on the Common Dynamics platform, we're able to add that information to this particular view, and in the end, you end up with the project manager not needing to click anywhere except in rare cases. You're able to provide the project manager right at their fingertips with what they need. You're able to kind of structure a business case as you come through this, and of course, at the same time, we're able to do things like, okay, I need to have project risks, and I want to take a look at what that looks like. I'm able to, of course, configure whatever I need to have a risk. I'm able to assign people to the risk. I'm able to put target dates, put details on, add a work plan if I need to as well. And then, of course, these risks are available across the system once they've been entered. Same thing goes for project issues, project changes, the bread and butter basics, cases associated with the project, the things you'd expect to see from a project if it was actually operating, and you need to have it all in one place. Now, you might provide an end user, if we don't have any issues associated with this, you might provide an end user with access just to the risks view. So they wouldn't see the workflow, they wouldn't see the top line information, they wouldn't see any of these choices. They would just see this, and that could be made available on mobile as well. So if they said, look, I need to look at the risks for the project because I was the risk manager, or because I want to create risks, they could go to a view that just showed this and was focused on the device that they were intended to interact with. Again, when we're talking about the rise of the customer through these things, this is what people expect when they interact with software at this point. So the work plan is typically the heart of a project, and what we would expect to want to leverage in order to, again, provide that predictability for clients. If I'm looking at this and I say I want to have a basic Gantt chart view of the world, well, I'm sorry, that's not what that is. Let me come back here real quickly. I'm able to see that I have my Gantt view of the world, and of course I'm able to drill down into these various folders and schedule tasks as well. Gantt charts are still part of what the people expect in terms of predictability, and our ability to generate and maintain these is important, not because they're the end-all be-all, but because they give us a future view of what the world is supposed to do, or supposed to look like. So let's suppose, on the other hand, however, that I wanted to have a top-down plan. So instead of actually coming in and saying, look, what am I doing in terms of task driven, I'm actually just want to say, look, I want to put people on this, and I want to be able to budget their time. I'm able to do this in terms of forecast, actuals, and revenue as well. And once I've done that, I'm able to take a financials view of the world and come in, do a budget. And I'm able to do a top-down budget against each one of these projects in terms of both labor, materials, supplies, travel expenses, contract software, other. Give me a top-line budget spend by month. Of course, we can do this by quarter or by year, depending on what you're at, depending on what your planning cycle is. The point being that either form of planning, the top-down, kind of budget-oriented, or a resource plan, or a Gantt chart, and then, of course, our ability to compare those things across to things like the forecast, which would be from the project schedule, actuals, revenue, budget to revenue, all becomes possible because we're in the unified environment of Dynamics. Okay. So one step out from that, the portfolio analysis, in terms of a large number of projects coming in, one of the requests that we see continuously is to say, look, we have to know what work we can do. So because we're part of the unified environment, we have our customer service or our opportunity information, but things come in, they're active or they're proposed. They're not always exactly what we want them to be, but if I'm able to come in and say, and I'm going to go ahead and do this with resources instead. Up above, we see the total list of projects that we might undertake, including active and proposed projects. Down below, we see a list of named people and what they're actually doing. And you can see that what we have is people that are in the red who are overutilized and will frankly lead to a project failure if it's not reconciled. I'm able to, however, filter this and say, look, I don't want to see the proposed. I want to see where people actually are. And you can see right away, Daniel is still over capacity, but everybody else turned green. So I'm able to kind of insert or outsert, I guess would be a different way to put it, projects depending on whether they're active, proposed, or different states of configurability depending on what you would need to model in order to make determinations about not only what projects should you undertake based on customer demand, but based on your ability to actually deliver those projects in the end. So one last thing as we kind of work through this, probably the least exciting piece of this, well, actually I'll save the most exciting piece for last, but probably the least exciting piece, timesheets. People always ask, well, that's great, how do we get actuals into the system? Now, you may have a timesheet system in place already. That's fine. We absolutely integrate with that and see that routinely. But in the event that you don't, we also do provide a timesheet. It does the things that you would expect it to do. It includes tasks that are approved. It includes what their status is. It allows you to enter time in whatever time period you want. It has financial periods and so forth. You're able to do approvals by resource, approvals by plan, approvals by detail grid, and depending on your role, you would only see the one that you wanted to see. And you get graphical indicators showing those things, whether this is approved time already, whether this is not submitted time already. And for those organizations that care about utilization, you can see your utilization being tracked directly as a resource when you're doing this. Now, the key, of course, is that some people want to do mobile, some people want to do this online, or I should say from a desktop. Both kind of mechanisms are supported. Again, in this case, your customer is the person entering time, and you want to make that as easy for them as absolutely possible. One last thing, tying it all together. When you look at all this data, the first thing that people ask is, well, gee, having entered all this, how am I going to go about deciding or showing executives what they should be looking at and what they should be focusing on? Because, again, all of this is done through the Dynamics platform. It's all available through Power BI or other reporting tool to kind of answer those exact questions or provide the dashboards that your executives might want. So you're able to look at things like the summary, like a timeline, like a project schedule. You're able to see graphical indicators showing which things they should focus on. You are able to drill in. We're able to look at financials from across the system. We're able to look at issues from across the system. We're able to look at risks from across the system. So depending on the role, if somebody is, again, needing a dashboard that runs across the projects, they're able to see all these things, and they can see these things based on opportunities and projects and pipeline and whatever else you wanted to. Again, this is all a product of this being delivered through the Microsoft Business Cloud. So this is an integrated approach, ultimately leveraging both Office and Dynamics. All right. So in summary, generally speaking, leveraging what you already own is a great thing. Most organizations have a lot of Microsoft already, and this solution leverages things they've already invested in. Moreover, it's a familiar look and feel for many people, so their interaction is going to be through Microsoft products that they already understand, minimizing the learning curve and reducing the adoption risk. You're also going to be working with a common IT platform. So the IT department is going to be able to answer questions without having to learn a completely new system. And moreover, as it kind of crosses more and more business domains, they'll be able to look to the same skill set in order to maximize return on their own internal investment and resources. And then lastly, there's an opportunity to retire multiple solutions that you may be double or triple paying for doing the same things over and over. By leveraging the whole Microsoft cloud, you're able to turn this into a one-stop shop and lower your spend. At this point, Doug, we've reached the end of our webinar. Wickersoft, www.wickersoft.com if you want more information. If you'd like to contact me to talk further about your current business problems or your objectives, or if you want to ask questions, if you want a demo that's tailored to your environment, I'd be happy to talk to you. Here's my contact information at the bottom, and please let me know. Doug?
Great. Thanks very much, Scott. And as mentioned earlier, we'll follow up with an email with a recording of this webinar. Thanks very much, everyone. I'll end the webinar at this point.